So welcome back to part two of my exciting discussion on for loops. So in the first part, we learned what a for loop was. We looked at some very sample basic examples of how a for loop works, going forward, going backward. So in this second video, we're going to write a couple more programs using the for loop. Okay, so we're going to start with the golf game, and then we'll do this accelerate. Let's take a look at golf first. So it's a really simple game. We're playing like a 9-hole round of mini putt or real golf, whatever kind of game you want to play. So with 9 holes of golf, basically we want to ask them on each hole what score they got. Okay, but as they're entering their scores, we want to also add them to a total. Okay, so this code here does that job for us. All right, so let me see if I can overlay my Python screen. I don't think I can, so let me just go back here and I will minimize that. Where'd it go? Okay. Maybe I should just keep it small the whole time. All right, so there's the example from the first video. So let's start a new file, and we're going to call this golf score. Okay, so we're going to have a variable called total, which equals 0. And now we're going to go through 9 holes of golf. So I'm going to use a variable called hole, okay, in range. Now I want to go 1 to 10 because I want to get to the 9th hole. Okay, now I could also put, by the way, guys, comma 1 because I'm going up by 1, but because that's the most common thing in Python, you don't have to put that in. So you can just leave it like that, and Python's going to assume that you're going up by 1. All right, so now that we're inside of the for loop, it indents for me. All right, so I'm going to have another variable called shot. All right, and we're going to ask for shot from the user. So hopefully you guys remember how to do this. We're going to use an int, and then we're going to use input, right? And then we're going to say like enter score for hole %d. Okay, so we're actually going to print the number hole 1, hole 2, hole 3 all the way through. Okay, and of course that's a placeholder for the variable hole. All right, so once we have our shot, somehow I think this is going to give me an error. I'm not sure. 1, 2. Oh yeah, I need another bracket here. That's why. There we go. Much better. Okay, this bracket is to end this bracket's to end the input, and then this one's going to end. It's going to be for int. So 3 brackets at the end. All right. So because for every one you have going this way, you need one going the other way. All right. So now that we got that figured out, I want to add shot, whatever shot I got in that particular hole, to my total. So I can say this, guys. I can say total plus equals shot. Okay, so that means, and I'm going to put hashtag here, we're going to say add shot to the total. Okay, but remember, this is going to happen like 9 times. So 9 times we're going to enter shots, and 9 times that shot is going to be continually added to total. Okay, so I just realized in my example, I do it in 2 lines of code. I do the input, and then I convert it to an int. But we can also just do it in 1 line like I'm doing here. So I can only do it in 2 if I want to. All right, and then when I come out of the loop, I'm done my game. I'm done my 9 holes of golf. So I can say print your final score is %d, right? And then I can basically make that a placeholder for the variable total. All right, and that's the entire program for now. We're going to come back and improve this in a while because there's going to be some problems with this, as I'll point out to you in a second, but we can fix those later on. But for now, I'm going to save this, and I'll just save it to my desktop, and I'll move it into my week 3 later. We're going to call this golf. Okay, and save, and I'm going to run this. Okay, and I'm just going to run it, using proper values. So enter the score for hole 1. So I got a 4, and then a 3, and then a 2, and then a 5, and then I did it really bad on the next hole, and then I got a 1, a hole in 1. Yes, I actually did that, and there we go. All right, so by the time I'm done, my final score is 33, which is actually pretty good for 9 holes of golf. Now, we could fix this up a little bit. Like, see how that looks like 14, 23? We can fix up the prompt a bit so that the number's not right beside it by just going like this. Just if we add like a little arrow and a space, that's going to make all the difference when we go to run this. So it's going to look a lot better now. Okay, so now, you know, that looks way better, right? So, but anyway, that's that program done. Okay, final score 28. Not too bad, not too shabby. Did better than the first time. All right, now there are problems with this though, right? Because I could enter, like say I run this, right, and I'm having a really bad game, so I get like a bunch of hole in 9s, right, and then I get to my last hole and I cheat and I say I got negative 100 or I got like negative 50 on the last hole, which of course we all know you can't get a negative, right? But the program doesn't know that. It's going to let that go by. So now my final score is 22, which is the best game I had yet, even though I entered a bunch of 9s. So at some point we're going to figure out a way using an if statement to prevent them from doing something like that. Okay, and the other problem, like if I run this again, and this is something we've never seen before, like if I enter 4 and then on hole 2 I got a beer, so I'm just going to put beer there. Okay, that's going to crash my program because you can't score beer on a hole. No drinking allowed on the course. So that's another problem that we can fix later on. Okay, so eventually we want our programs to be bulletproof so that no matter what the person enters, we've got it covered. But we'll get to that later on. So for now, that's good enough for our first example. All right, so very simple, but you know, very practical program. So let's try another example before we move on to the while loops. Okay, and this one's called acceleration. So I'll just blow this up, and then we'll come out of this in a second. So in this one here, we're basically dropping a rock from, say, a bridge into a river. And it's initially going at 20 kilometers per hour, and we're just going to say pretend it accelerates by 10% each second, and we want to know how fast it's going when it hits the ground. So this is a good like science or physics type of program or question that we can answer. All right, so we can basically have speed start at 20, and we can go for seconds in range. We're counting backwards from 10 to 0, going down by -1 at a time. All right, so we're going to print the speed at that time, and then we're going to increase speed by 10%. So we say speed equals speed times 1.1. So that's a way of increasing it by 10%. We could also say speed equals speed plus 10% of speed. Either way, it's going to work. And then when we're out of our for loop at the end, we're going to say, you know, it hits the ground at this speed. Okay, and we're going to get this kind of output here. All right, so let's try this one together as a group online, by ourselves, but as a group. So new file. This one's going to be called acceleration. Okay, so when we go to save it, that's what we'll save it as. All right, so I can sort of see what's going on down here, but I'll try to recreate it up here. So speed equals 20. And by the way, these slideshows are available to you, and you can just, you know, rather than following me on the video, you can just type these out on your own if you want to as well. But this is just to help you if you need that kind of help. All right, so we're going to have a variable called seconds. So I'm going to say 4 seconds in range 10 to -1, going down by -1. All right, so the first -1 is sort of the stop point, and this is the amount we're changing by. So it looks kind of confusing to have 2 in a row, but that's why they're both there. All right, so let's start by saying what the speed is at this second. So we're going to say print at t minus, you know, %d seconds, speed is %.2f. Okay, and I'm going to use that because, well, yeah, because I want to be a little bit more precise. So I'm going to have it as a float, 2 decimal places, so that we can get more accurate. All right. So that is a placeholder for 2 variables, right? So the first variable is seconds, and the next variable is, of course, speed. Okay. So now we're going to speed up by 10%. So I can do it in 2 ways. I'm going to do it a little differently than in the slideshow. I'm going to say speed equals what it already is plus 10% of itself. Okay, so 0.10 times speed. Okay, so that's going to work as well. Okay, and that's all we have to do in this loop. So it prints the speed, it increases the speed, and then it goes to the next second down, and then it increases the speed again. All right, so then when we're done, we'll have sort of a final print statement here. So first we'll print like a bit of a line separator to separate this from the loop printing, and then we'll say print it hits the ground at percent 0.2 f kms per hour, right? And that's a placeholder again for speed at the very bottom. So we're just going to print speed one more time at the bottom when it gets there. And while I'm thinking of it, why don't I up here also add the units? So the speed is 0.2 f km per hour. All right, so that should be enough for this program to do what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to save it first of all as accelerate, A-C-C-E-L-E-R-A-T-E. Yeah, I think that's how you spell it. Pretty sure. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to run it, and we should get, there we go. So it hits the ground at 57.06 kilometers per hour. And you can see how it's increasing at t minus 10, t minus 9. See how it's counting down here to 0? And then, of course, at 0, it's, it does one more speed up, and then it finishes at 57.06. I wonder if that's the same answer I got here. Yes, it is. Look at that. So 57.06 is exactly what I got here. All right. So yeah, so those are two examples of the for loop. And I think before we look at the while loop, I want to come over here and maybe do a little bit of work with this worksheet. Okay. So I want you to put your name up here. I'm just going to put my name, and maybe I'm going to zoom this up a bit so we can see this. All right. So what are two ways you can repeat or loop some of your code in Python? We've only learned one way so far. Okay, so we're going to just do the first example. Okay, so this is the for loop. Okay, which is like fixed number of repeats. Okay, so we know exactly how many times it's going to repeat. So if I want to print the numbers from 1 to 20, I could say like for num in range 1 to 21, right? And then I can just like print num. Okay, and that's just going to print the numbers from 1 to 20. Okay, so I'll just put that like that. All right, so that's the for loop. Okay, so this one here, we're going to leave that till the next lesson. Let's come down here and see if we can work backwards. So I'm giving you the numbers, and I want you to say what is the for loop that would produce these numbers. So let's do the first one together. So this is going from 2 to 30, but we got to go to a number higher than 30, like say 31, so that we can reach 30. Also notice it's going up by 2's. All right, so that's enough of a clue for us to figure out how to do the for loop. So the for loop for this would be something like for x in range 2 to 31, comma 2. Okay, and this will produce this sequence of numbers. Okay, let's try the next one. Going backwards, 10 to 0. So this one's going to be for x in range 10 to minus 1 and minus 1. Okay, this is the exact same for loop that we used in our acceleration program just a few minutes ago. All right, the next one, we're going up by decades from the year 2000 to the year 2100. So I'm going to say for decades, a decade is 10 years, right? In range 2000, and I have to go just past 2100. So even just 2101 will work. Okay, and I'm going up by 10. Okay? Excuse me. This is going backwards by 3's. So I'll just use x again. This one's going from 30 down to minus 30, so we got to go just past it. Like minus 31 will do. We're going backwards, so minus 3. All right, make sure you use a minus sign there. And the last one goes from 5 to 50 by 5's. So for x in range 5 to say 51, comma 5. All right, so if you don't believe me, you can definitely go into the shell and you can try any one of these. All right, so let me just try this. I don't know, I'll just try the last one. Okay, and you don't have to necessarily write a program for it. You can just do it here in the shell. In fact, you can copy and paste it into the shell if you want to. So I'm just going to literally copy this thing I wrote in Google Docs. I'm going to paste it here into the prompt. Then I got to like print x, right, just to make sure that it works. Okay, so there it goes there. Now, just as a side note, if you wanted to actually print it exactly like this with commas in between, we can even do that if we want to get really fancy here. So I go like this, print x, comma, end it with a comma, just like that. Okay, so it's not going to go to a new line, it's just going to put a comma in between. So here we go. All right, so exactly like what you got there. So you can try those out if you want to, but basically that's how that works. But this is a good practice, right? All right, so I think that's it for lesson 2. I think we'll do a third lesson where we come back and we're going to cover the while true loop, and then we'll basically finish off with a few more programs, and we'll finish off this worksheet in part 3 of the lesson for today.